I'm Ashley Klein. I'm the moderator of this panel today, which is AI in retail. Today, we're going to be covering subjects such as demand forecasting, dynamic pricing, personalization, recommendations, and everyone's favorite subject this year of agentic AI and Gen AI. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panel. Moving across my screen, first we have Liming Wang, who's CTO of Datrix. Liming has 30 years experience leading AI for companies such as Uber, and AWS, and Millennium. Down to Don Gussie. Don Gussie is VP of Retail at Pomeroy Services, and he has over 40 years experience in retail. Last but not least, we have Adam Southam. He's the CEO of a really amazing AI personalization app that every consumer should be taking with them to the store. It provides recommendations on products that the consumers should be purchasing based on their personalized medical conditions. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Great to be here.
Thanks. All right. So before we start getting into the questions, once again, the topics we're going to cover is the demand forecasting, dynamic pricing, personalization, recommendations, and agentic AI. Before we get into that, let's just have an icebreaker, and everyone can go around the clock and say what a fun fact is about them. I'll start. So I was just thinking of this morning, and I counted up, and I've done AI projects in 28 different countries on 6 different continents. So while it's a little work related, I've had a lot of fun working all over the world, traveling. What about you, Lemmy?
As a tech nerd, 35 years ago, my research direction as actually is a neural network. And when I developed a neural network for detecting the patterns in the oil drilling industry, I use a neural network which has 3 nodes in the middle. So in today's terms, it has about 30 parameters. But think about right now the leading GPT, which has trillions of nodes. You can see how that technology lived over the past a few decades.
35 years. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Don?
Well, I guess fun fact is work related as well. Over 50 years ago, I was working in the supermarket industry and was privileged to manage the 10th and 14th scanning systems ever installed in the world. So I've gone through several generations of technology in retail, and then was called on by Michigan merchants to go before the Michigan legislature and counter some of the wild mistruths that were being presented by union leadership at that time. It was a lot of fun, actually. I learned a lot.
Very cool. All right. Adam?
I have so many fun facts. I'm not sure where to start, but okay, so we've got an hour, right? Yeah, that's it. I still hold the longest record for the length of time that it took to get a patent after filing a patent in the subject matter of our patents. Though I think it's much funner that I gave up hopes of being an Olympic jumper to become a ski racer. So the horses were just too dangerous.
Great. And you ran 5 miles this morning.
Yeah. Wow.
You're pacing us. All right. So we're going to go ahead and jump into questions. We will get into technical questions. I want this to be an interactive session. If you want to send us messages on the chat, please ask us questions. We're here to respond to any sort of questions. We don't want to just be up here talking to ourselves. We want this to be an interactive session. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and dive in. And where I'm going to dive in is the start. So where and when should retailers start their AI journey? And to that point, are there some sort of minimum requisites that they really need to have in order to just get started with AI? glooming?
I think the question when actually the answer is very easy. It's now, right? Because AI really giving those retailers who leverage AI a huge advantage. And if you don't leverage AI, right, and the chances that you may lose in the competition with your competitors. And retailers should begin with AI journey when they have a clear business objective, right, and access to foundational data. It's not a high bar. A good starting point it would be you have the sales transactional data, means that you have the POS data, and you have invoice and payment records, right? So those data doesn't need to be in a specific format, right? It can be in any format. And if you have your customer data, for example, you have an online business, you have a loyalty program, that would be even better because it enables a lot more high ROI solutions for you. I would say, in short, a retailer doesn't need to have this perfect infrastructure to start, but should ensure they have business goals aligned with AI use cases, has the core data sets, and a willingness to experience and iterate.
Great.
And
I'll
I
add to
concur,
that.
by the way. Sorry. I was just going to say I concur that, and retailers are doing this. They're identifying the priority challenges with the highest potential return specific to their particular retail challenges. And the journey should start today to, at minimum, I want to say identify the areas of opportunity by each individual retailer.
Yeah, you took all my fun away. Yeah, if you haven't started, you're too late. And I think the number one, here's my 5-minute timer. That's how much you've got. But the number one thing is not having fear. You've got to tackle it.
And I'll add, just as I have about 15 years experience in AI consulting, and the number one thing that most my retailers say to me is, my data's dirty. My data's a mess. My data's in different systems. And there's this antiquated idea that you have to have all your data together and structured, and you have to know exactly what you're doing before getting started. There's a lot of people who can come in, clean up the data, extract the raw data, and move from there. So okay, so I'll move on to the next one. How do you balance quick AI wins with long-term goals? And this is especially true with retailers on limited budgets with limited resources.
Yeah, I would say start with quick wins, right? And those quick wins can increase revenue, decrease cost, decrease risk. And those quick wins can create budget for align with the long-term goals. And it also easier to get internal support and boost the confidence. And it creates a snowball effect, right?
Yeah.
More wins leading to more wins, and leading to bigger wins.
Then you get a bigger budget for the more fun, crazy AI projects. What about
That's
you?
right.
Yeah, I think that the long-term goals should not necessarily be the objective. They should be shorter goals with higher returns, and concur with Liming that you want to secure quick wins, which is the power of having pre-built solutions.
Yeah, I'd add that you can pursue things concurrently. So you may have a 5-year plan and a 1-year plan and a 1-month plan. I know the way we look at things is we'll get our customers, and we hope that everybody does this, into the fastest solution we can, which can be a matter of days, while the best solution could take 6 months. Do them both.
So kind of along this line, and it ties back to what I was saying about quick wins and getting started. You want to get started as soon as possible. How have you seen AI improve store level decision making without overhauling all those old legacy programs, without overhauling all the infrastructure and doing a big rip and replace, which is oftentimes a big objection is, oh, I have to rip out this system and put in this ERP system. And that's going to take us 2 years to do, so we can't. So one thing that I can mention is with agentic AI, retailers don't need to overhaul legacy systems. You can benefit from AI. You can use AI agents to connect from existing systems. Also, Datrix actually does sit right on top. We provide you with the data science in a Docker container. So we extract the information from disparate systems. So you've got Oracle and we've got all your different ERP systems and Anaplan and Blue Yonder. We can extract information using AI agents and agentic AI. So that is one way that we can basically get started without having to rip and replace, which is oftentimes when you go and you speak to your team, I want to do demand forecasting or I want to do dynamic pricing. I'd like to do some personalization. The AI Center of Excellence, a lot of times they think, yeah, this is great, let's do it. And then you have to talk to your IT. And IT is a big, it's where all fun projects go to die, right? So IT kind of blocks it and says, no, we have to rip and replace. So there are ways now in which you can do these quick wins sitting right on top of the systems using AI agents. Very simple. Okay, so now I'm going to get into some more technical detail about demand forecasting. And this is Luming's area of expertise. He's actually writing a book on this, which is very exciting. He has his own way of doing dynamic pricing and demand forecasting. So I'm going to direct this to Luming. And Luming, I do want you to get technical. You don't have to just brush the surface. Go ahead and dig into your processes. So what's the most common failure point in traditional demand forecasting that nobody wants to admit? And how can AI address this?
Yeah, I think the biggest failure in traditional demand forecasting is that it is often less accurate than a simple moving average. And the accuracy is low, the variance is high, and it becomes unusable, right? Because those time series-based models narrowly looking at seasonality. And it actually overlook key drivers like promotions, inventories, local events, or even weather, right? So without those key, we call it predictors, right? And the demand forecasting is it's not usable. And we actually using combining all those time series patterns with all the key predictors and come up with, we call it factor-based forecasting. It has two benefits. One is that it's much, much more accurate than time series-based demand forecasting. Typically, it will reduce the error rate by at least 50%, and often you can see it reduce error rate by 80 to 90%. And another thing is that it is explainable, right? So when you try to predict, you often, it's not the number you try to predict, but also the trend. You notice there is a trend change. And when there is a trend change, you want to take actions. If trend is in your favorite, you want that trend to continue or accelerate. If it's not, you want to stop that trend change as soon early as possible. Time theory won't tell you why there is a trend change. Yes, it can detect it, but it cannot tell you why. With a factor-based prediction, you can. Right? You know exactly what's behind the reason of that trend change, and then you can take actions. So it's much, much more powerful on that.
I agree. Now you just got a glimpse into Luming's book. So on this concept, and this is what every retailer asks me is, yes, we can look at the data that we've already got, the pass-through data, the sale data, the historical data, but how important is it like local context? I like to refer to this as macro data, macroeconomic data, but things like weather events, seasonality, events, the Super Bowl on how many people are buying pizzas during the Super Bowl, events, competitor promotions. So you're not just looking at your company data. How much does it factor being able to come in and take a look at regional and data such as avocado sales in California versus Alabama? How much does that come into play?
Yeah, those data are actually critical for the forecasting.
Mm-hmm.
And if those data are missing, the forecasting often fail to reflect the actual customer behaviors. I think incorporate those contexts make forecasting much more adaptive and relevant at the store level, right? A lot of times the demand actually is at the local level,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, yeah.
Yep. And that's where using machine learning, using AI, you're able to factor in so many different data points, right? Just you'd have to have an army of people looking at all these different data points, but with machine learning, we can put in every dimension possible. Okay, so now I'm going to go into spoilage. So we're saying grocery store. In your experience, how has better forecasting impacted spoilage and waste reduction and also margins?
Yeah, so we actually use what we call it a risk-based model, right?
Mhm.
And taking the account of what's the cost of you trying to, you have over uh, inventory or you have under uh, inventory, and looking at the both risk, and we try to balance the trade-off between those two. And this approach actually reduced the spoilage and waste, and at the same time, it improved product availability, right? It helped optimizing staffing, inventory cost, and as a result, it will have the increased margin with a lower
Mhm.
operational risk.
And it's also a win-win for everyone because then the consumer is actually able to, they're not throwing food away. We want to make sure that food is getting to consumers at an affordable price. All right, so here's one, and this is the naysayers who are against AI and against optimization, and this could be using AI to make your consumers feel played. So where's the line between doing price optimization and over optimizing pricing to the perfect line and also making your consumers feel like they're getting played a bit?
I think the key is the transparency and the consistency,
Okay.
right? Dynamic pricing should reflect the real value, like time of the day, the demand, or inventory, right? Not exploit individual customers' behavior, right? For example, I know that some retailers basically, when they do online pricing, if you check their price using iPhone, they price higher,
Mhm.
right? Because they think you can afford it, right?
Mhm.
And the people, when people find out, right, you side by side compare the price using iPhone or Android phone, and iPhone is higher,
Yeah.
customer feels they got cheated,
Good
right?
way to lose customers.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a very unfair, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, so I think the well-designed pricing optimization strategy should keep pricing logical
Mhm.
and aligned with business goals, right? And also protecting customer trust. The loyalty should be awarded, not penalized.
Exactly. Luming and I worked in the aviation industry, and man, when I told people we were doing dynamic pricing on the flights, we got a lot of flack. People said, "Oh, so you guys are the ones responsible for that flight going up." But yes, it's about rewarding your customers. You don't want to penalize. All
Let
right.
me add something there, by the way,
Yeah.
it totally is. And instead of raising the price because you've got a certain phone, how about lowering the price because you bought 12 cases of these things already? And it is perfectly acceptable to reward people for multiple buys, and make the price lower than anybody else because they bought 12 cases instead of 12 cases, 144.
That ties into what we were talking about the personalization. So we want to do demand forecasting, dynamic pricing. The overall goal for every retailer should be to have a buyer persona. So you want to build a profile of Ashley Klein and what I normally buy and where can I love LaCroix flavored waters. And I get targeted all the time. Kroger runs a special and I run to the store to go stock up on my LaCroix. So yes, it's all about building and having that personalized experience and rewarding people for their behavior. and for being a loyal customer. All right. Have you seen any backlash or erosion of brand equity and overly aggressive price? I guess we kind of went into that. We talked about
Yes.
airlines catching some flack there. That's never fun. I personally will use a VPN and geolocate myself somewhere else whenever I.
Good idea.
It works.
I have to remember that.
How are retailers using AI to detect and respond to local competitive pricing while still protecting their own margins? So this is the pricing wars. Nobody wants to be in a race to the bottom of the barrel. Lamine, do you have anything to say?
Yeah.
Don?
So this remind me my time at Amazon. I actually create Amazon pricing engine, right? So, and Amazon using machine learning, using web scraping to monitor competitive price. And when there is a competitive price, right, you have an algorithm to determine whether you want to match that price or not, right? And if you match it, how much you match it? You beat it, you be below, 1% lower, 2% lower, right? So the machine learning actually can help you to make that decision instead of people setting rules.
Yeah. Yeah. So the difference between rule-based decision-making and machine learning is real-time adjustments. So that the machine learning can make that. If you're dollar store versus Walmart and it's a pack of Coca-Cola, you can make those real-time adjustments to your pricing. All right, so now we've pretty much gone into demand forecasting, dynamic pricing, and we did touch already in the pricing about how we want to make everything ultra personalized. I think that's where all retailers need to make the personalized experience for customers. So now we're going to go into personalization, which also Adam's app is a hyper personalized application for all consumers who walk into a grocery store. So what does AI-powered personalization look like inside the store? Can you share specific in-store use cases?
I'll take that for sure. So Susie was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes this morning. Without these technologies, she would have walked into her favorite store and she would have bought haddock, maybe sticks breaded, because her doctor said to eat more fish. But with these technologies, she walks in the store, she still goes for the haddock, and she enters that information or scans it and says, and the app says to her, actually, Susie, some fresh salmon would be better for you. Oh, and by the way, how about some lentils and some basil and some saffron and some sour cream and three other things that will all make the salmon taste great. And oh, by the way, we got to the basil section, and guess what? We're presented with three brands, one of them which is the store brand. And the store brand is 50 cents less. And by the way, it says it's organic, so we're getting more for less. And Susie's really quite delighted. And then on her way out, because she was just diagnosed with this, she is steered towards the vitamin mineral supplement section, and told precisely which VMS she should buy to help to mitigate the disease that she has just found out about. So the difference for Susie is clear. She walked in there and she was going to buy something that, quite frankly, was marginally better than whatever she was eating before, pizza. And instead, she walked out with a remarkable purchase that really aided her health. But let's also look at the benefits to everyone else. So for the store and the brands and the own brands and everybody made a lot of more money. There was upsell, cross-sell, and brand conversion to own brands. And maybe it's not brand conversion to own brands. Maybe it's brand conversion to, gee, this is the brand of fish oil that is going to benefit Susie the most, and it actually makes us more money. So I think you have to be very clear about the intent here. You can never make a recommendation adverse to someone's well-being, but within a cohort of equivalent products, you can certainly steer them in the direction you want.
So Adam just walked you through his app. which is Food for Health, and it's an app for folks who are going to the grocery store, and it's going to suggest to them the ingredients to that's going to benefit their health condition, high cholesterol, cancer, what have you. So we work with Adam on this app, and we absolutely love it. So there's recommendations and personalization. So that's one form. What about any other form, Lumine, of just personalized experience with AI that's in store?
Yeah, so with the AI agent, it can assess store associate by surfacing personalized product recommendations, right, or promotions. When a known loyalty customer walks in, right, and so they can make those recommendations. Another case is that you could use digital signage that update offers dynamically based on local demand, weather, or even who is in the store, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm
Interesting.
gonna go
It's
back and just add to what we said earlier on pricing. It's like, okay, so Susie's buying Cliff Bar. Well, guess what? Let's reward her for buying 12 or 24. The other thing that's really interesting about AI is that it can become precognitively predictive. Hopefully I didn't mess that up. And so Susie buys a lot of blueberries, but she's buying a pineapple Cliff Bar. Well, that's pretty obvious, right? The AI should recommend, why don't you try the blueberry? But what if it's not that obvious, and we know from gustatory precog that actually Susie would love blueberries, but she never ever tries them because she thinks they look weird. And so there's so much there. And then complementary products. Again, she buys the blueberry Cliff Bar. I'm stuck on Cliff. I'm about to eat one. And and now there's 43 others that she's never tried. So it becomes an experimental opportunity for shoppers, patients.
I'm going to go a little bit more technical here because I want the folks on the webinar to understand, let's get a little bit deeper. So how do you ensure personalized offers stay relevant through AI, through machine learning, or through AI? How are you going to ensure that?
I would say it's very simple. It's just continue learning from the real-time data, right? So you look at the most recent purchasing history, browsing behavior, locations, right, and the context, right? And AI models update dynamically to reflect changing customers. So AI is not a one-time thing, right? AI can self-evolve, leveraging technologies like reinforcement learning. And also it can monitor its performance, and it can automatically tune itself and or even retraining. So yeah.
Adam, I'm going to go straight to you now. We're going to talk a little bit about your app. So what unique data sets or technologies are required to accurately match these grocery products like salmon and olive oil with individual consumers' medical conditions, their wellness goals, weight loss goals, the way that your app, which is considering people's actual health and medical conditions, what are the data sets that you're using?
Yeah, and I'm going to go beyond us as a company and just talk about what has to occur for humanity. So there are lots of apps out there right now, and they're collecting certain information, and they're relying upon that information. Well, we know that when you buy this Cliff Bar, by the way, I don't own Cliff or anything else about Cliff Bar. I'm not promoting them, but I am going to tell them. Anyway, when you're buying something and information is collected about it. Well, we know the ingredients here. Okay, forget our app. This is just any app that attempts to deal with food as medicine. And we can learn from that. But until you get down to the hardcore manner of disease states and what are actually clinically proven to work for or against those disease states, you've got to know what people's disease states are. We can't take a guess that you're diabetic because you don't eat bananas. And by the way, there are diabetics who can eat a lot of bananas because they're running and they offset the high glycemic index. I'll stop there. Anyway, so bottom line here is you really need the medical information on Susie to give her the products that are good for her. Then you've got to keep that information with Fort Knox surrounding it, more than anything we've ever done before. because to get Susie to trust you that it's not going to end up on a billboard or in a big leak is a big step. And the way to do that is to do it gradually. You're not going to ask her to hand over her life's medical records on day one. She's going
Mhm.
to trust you with the fact that she's a diabetic and she's got gout. Okay,
Mhm.
you build the trust. I mean, look back to when we first had ATMs. Nobody trusted them, right? I
Mhm.
mean, that was outrageous. And in fact, online sales, same thing. The idea of putting your credit card in a machine was ludicrous. But trust was built, and even though we do have big incidents, not to mention any poor retailers who suffer from this, we all know about them. People continue to trust because
Yeah.
overall we know that it's not them. Everybody's trying their hardest, and
Yeah.
things break. That's just the truth of the matter.
On the privacy issue, I'm recalling Sam Altman's words, I think it was last week, about people are entrusting ChatGPT with their deepest, darkest secrets. So I could imagine some Gen Z person saying, "How do I bury a body in my backyard?" And the police can subpoena that, or who knows if the insurance company can get that if you're in a car wreck or what have you. But you do need to have an app such as yours that is secure and compliant because you can't just trust all of your data on ChatGPT. And I'm guilty. I use ChatGPT all day, every day, but I
Oh,
try
I
not
could write a terrible book about me. Um, but it has to be way beyond HIPAA. I mean, HIPAA is kind of the base standard, and the Europeans do it a lot better. But at the end of the day, the consumer needs to know this is their data, and they own it. And if they want to take it away, it's theirs. And any other rules, honestly, need to be changed because by the government, by retailers, by everyone to say that this is your data, you do with it once. As soon as
to.
they have that control, then they'll start trusting people.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of that in Europe. Okay, so I want to keep an eye on time, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. Um, so we we do want to have time for Q&A. I haven't seen many questions come up just yet, but next, let's go into if your client were to invest just one AI-powered solution over the next 12 months. So we're, on into the second half of 2025. We know it's all been about agentic AI and AI agents has been the buzz of the year. What would you suggest if just one project to suggest and in fast moving consumer products, so in grocery, for instance? Luming, do you or Don Luming?
Yeah, I think different companies actually in different stages, and they need to calculate their own ROI, right? And looking at their pain point. But I think for the majority of the clients, demand forecasting and inventory optimization should deliver very high, or if not highest ROI,
Mm-hmm.
because it directly impacts revenue, cost, and the margin, right? It reduces the stock out, overstock, and waste, and it also improves labor planning and supply chain efficiency, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this use case, the good thing is about this use case is measurable, scalable, and doesn't require major system overhaul. So this is actually can be a quick win and
Yeah,
make it ideal for near-term impact.
great. I've
Yeah,
actually do have. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think what I'm seeing and chatting with retailers, it's really very much what is their challenge. I could argue that they may have a good system today that is not marginalized for demand forecasting and optimization of inventory and price optimization and those kinds of things. They've been doing this in this fast moving consumer goods space for decades and perfecting it over time. But there are other areas where they may be challenged. Could be customer experience, and so therefore a service AI. It could be their procurement and spend AI might have more traction and a higher return for them. So I think it's really very specific to the retailer, and you just have to have that discussion to say, in one case today, we're doing safety is their priority. So it really requires a discussion with the retailer about where their most significant priority challenges are.
Great. I actually have a question for you from the audience, Dawn. Ashley, can you ask Dawn, so you're on the hot seat, on the proliferation of AI and the impact it can have in a retail venue? What considerations should be made from a network infrastructure standpoint? So inside the retail venue and the network infrastructure standpoint.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and one we get faced with because, retailers want to minimize their cost. So is it a computer vision? So is it leveraging one camera that can do multiple applications? That seems to have some traction right now. But I think infrastructure-wise, it is important what we can do with their existing infrastructure, again, to get the shortest path to victory, if you will, from the goal. So, can we use their existing cameras? We found that in most cases we can. Is it a security application that already exists and that we want to layer on top of it? So I think there's multiple answers to those questions, and I also would have to admit I am not an infrastructure expert. It's probably one of my guys on the phone that asked that question.
Maybe.
Try and trip me up.
Maybe. But I think that this is where this is important because you want to be able to once again get to faster ROI and work with what existing systems, just like we said before. Nobody wants to rip and replace. Nobody wants to have to go and buy a bunch of new hardware. We don't want to have to get into the RFPs and dealing with IT again. One other question: how do you prove value to leadership early on? In these, like the first AI project, how are we going to prove the value to the leadership? Let me go down. I'm
I
getting.
think you have to pilot, and I think pilot's a naughty word, but there are ways to create a specific either demo or approach, particularly with AI, pretty quickly to validate that it's the right solution for the challenge that they presented.
Yeah, most all of our projects, by the way, and my entire history in AI consulting, almost everything starts with a pilot. So you're right. We, of course, as providers, try to go straight into it, but we are going to start with pilots.
Yeah,
Okay,
but I think if I can just add one more comment, I think one of the things retailers should search for is not the multi-million-dollar AI consultant. It is the companies that actually have solutions that have delivered that can show in a short period of time success.
Fail fast. And to back you up, Don, triage, whatever your issue is, has to be first. Back to the question of what do you do first? If everything else is running smoothly, then it's about increasing sales and increasing profitability on those sales, which often means own brand conversion. So that would be my answer to the what do you do next in AI? But you
I
got
think it's
to get
cutting
all the
costs.
stuff right.
My answer is to cut the cost.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah,
people are walking out the door with your tomatoes, then you better work on security first.
but I do believe customer analytics, which has been around again in certainly in the fast-moving consumer goods sector, is a very important piece of what you started out with personalization, the persona, understanding your individual customer as best you can, and then marketing to that customer for sure.
The other thing to mention is layered solutions. So we can give you something that is available in one day or takes 6 months. They have different features, and I think back to the pilot, it's like do the one day. Now one day to implement, but a
4
3
weeks.
trial. Yeah. All right. Yes, Ashley, good point. 4 weeks.
Don't tell people we can do a pilot in one day.
I retract that.
Okay, so we're getting a lot of questions coming in. I know we kind of had a format, but I want to answer all these folks' questions. The next ones, I think it's really interesting. If you do know me, you know that I do a lot of conferences, I do a lot of speaking, and every conference, every year there's a big overhyped. There's something that's overhyped. There's something that everyone's talking about. What is overhyped right now in retail, in AI, of course?
Yeah, I think when AI claims that they can fully replace human, I mean, we are not there yet. So today, AI would be a great assistant and augmentation to human resources. But
Hmm.
it's very important that you still have human to verify the AI output, right? To collaborate with AI together. AI can help increase productivity for sure, right? But anything promise magic, still not there yet.
Yeah, and to
Yeah, like
elaborate further, I would add fear. It's there's a lot out there about the fear of AI, which I think Leming is referring to, and I don't think it should be feared, particularly when you're talking about these kinds of solutions that uh, shouldn't generate a concern. You want to be secure with your data. You certainly want all those things that I think retailers are pretty good at and understand, but don't be afraid of it. Instead, embrace it and look at what it can do for you.
Yeah, I'm going to add on this just as someone who's constantly speaking to retailers. So one of the fears is that it's going to replace the humans, right, in the store. It's going to replace the associates. And I say, well, actually, the majority of my retail clients are coming to me asking me for a large language model, an enterprise language model, so that the associate, if I'm walking through the aisles of Home Depot, once upon a time, you'd have a paint expert and you'd have a lumber expert and a kitchen and tile expert. But now you're walking through and you probably have some kid in college or high school. Anyway, you can actually go up to them and they can quickly pull open their handheld and then they can speak into it. And then immediately AI can give you all these different nuances and they can say, okay, you have an oak deck and you're trying to stain it and you've got white siding and you're in Chicago, you're not in Atlanta, or you're not out in Arizona where things melt. So you could actually make your associate such a better resource because they've got the tip of their hands the answers. So AI is not going to
Which, by
replace.
the way, which, by the way, was one of the 50 plus years ago union claims was that we aren't going to need people. We'll reduce employees. Of course, they didn't want to lose people. And it was totally the reverse. These stores were staffed actually much larger than what
Yeah.
they have been previously.
Yeah, I know if when I go to a health store and I'm looking kind of what Adam talks about, when I'm looking for specific kind of supplements and oils but yet I'm going, well, okay, but maybe I have this liver enzymes and I want to I keep hearing that these oils are great and going up to just a random associate and asking them that question, they don't know how to answer it. If they had an LLM that they could punch that in and give it to me and I could get some really great questions that are using essentially like a chat GPT to scour all of the products in that store and suggest different products that interact. You don't want to be buying different essential oils and supplements that are interacting. Anyway, I digress. Sorry.
No,
Uh,
just to add to that, as we look at dietitians, registered dietitians and nutritionists, their biggest fear when when AI came out and fear about us is we're going to replace you. But that's not true because you cannot be in the patient's pocket while they walk the aisles of the grocery store. So what we are is we're actually an extension of the dietitian, and the demand for them is going up and up and up. Going back to your Home Depot example, guess what? I mean, you'll have more associates because they'll be selling more products. So it's unfounded, but yeah.
okay, and I know we're at time. I don't know if I'm going to have one last question. I'm going to say, and I know we're a little bit over, but what usually goes wrong when retailers try to scale AI from pilots? Because we all know that it starts with pilots. Most pilots don't scale. Lamine, can you please take this? What goes wrong when we try to scale from pilot into the enterprise?
Yeah, based on our experience, the number one reason is lack of executive buy-in. And some other reasons include, let's say, it's not measurable, right? So you don't have a clear ROI calculation. And also sometimes people doing the pilot is just for the purpose doing pilot. They are not ready to deploy. When you do a pilot, you should set clear goal and know the ROI. And if the pilot succeed, you go deploy and use it. That's the critical piece that you get the value from AI.
I'm sorry, we're already over. So thank you so much for everyone. If you do have any questions, please send them our way. I apologize, I didn't keep track of time better, but thank you so much for your time today. We will be releasing this footage, and please reach out to us with any sort of questions. All right.
Thank you, Ashley.
All right. Bye.